and unexpected events which disturbs the employees, organization, as well as external clients refers to crisis management. Crisis management is an organization's process and strategy responding to a threat, an unanticipated event, or any negative disruption with the potential to harm people, property, or business processes. Being prepared for any event to become a crisis requires a crisis management plan. HREI welcomes you all to the 2022 Dialogue Masterclass series on the topic Crisis Management through Heroic Leadership Principles. To know more about HREI and its events, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. Request all the participants to kindly follow the webinar guidelines mentioned in the chat window. It would be great to have all the participants' feedback. We will be running a poll before the Q&A session. Request all the participants to kindly give your feedback on the session. I now take the privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Ms. Evita Francis, Vice President, Business Resilience Practice Leader, Middle East and North African Region, Marsh. Evita Francis is a Resilience and Crisis Strategy Advisor. She is a Vice President for Business Resilience at Marsh MENA region. She has 17 plus years of global experience towards innovative and impactful programs in risk reduction and enhancing resilience for both public and private institutions. As an international strategic advisor, Evita has trained and facilitated exercises across different industries such as financial, IT, oil and gas, manufacturing. As a qualified expert, she has also facilitated crisis response deployments, be it pandemic, terrorism, civil disturbance, and natural catastrophes. She is a member of the Institute of Directors and Business Continuity Institute. Evita is also a jury member for the International Organizational Resilience Award. You can also follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Without wasting much time, I now hand over the platform to Ms. Evita. Over to you, Ms. Evita.
Thank you, Faisal. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Happy holidays. We are at the year end, and crisis management is something that I do day in, day out the last around 21 years of managing various crisis management strategy and transformation projects globally. And this is a topic that is close to heart. I think there are a few questions that I would like to ask you all before I share my screen is, do you think the world today will be less complex than the future world? You can actually put it on the chat. Do you think that the future world may be more complex than where we're living in today? Yes, no, or if you can actually raise your hands, if you think it's more complex, will be more complex, that would be great. Like how I've raised my hands. Yes, the same. I think we have a couple of yes. Okay. Another question for you all. Do you think that the world, the future world, may be more faster than the present world that we're living in? If it's yes, either type yes or raise your hand. There's a reaction button on the down below your screen, the second last button. That's something that you can click. Okay, so we had 2 responses about whether the world will be much more faster than the world that we're living in right now. Okay, for those that have been working for many years, question for you all. 20 years ago, do you think that the world was much slower than where we're living right now? Okay, so you think that the world is maybe much slower. Okay. It's crucial. I'm for sure the way we've been looking at leadership, the concept of leadership is now more behavioral than the way we look at leadership in the past. The concept of crisis management is what we do in day out, I think, as individuals, in each individual capacity of managing situations, coming up with innovative solutions. Now, today I wanted to talk to you about heroic leadership principles. Now, heroic leadership principles are quite old. It's a 450-year-old concept that started off with the Jesuits. Some of us have studied. I've studied from Loyola Academy from Hyderabad, and it's all the Jesuit priests, the institutions that you see globally, around 700 institutions globally, required in colleges, schools, perspective that you see, and how they've actually built up the enterprise, and what principles that they looked at of building this massive international, one of the largest international institutions across the world. Now, those few principles that were came up with 12 people way back in the 1540 perspective, it's a very old concept. Now they're celebrating close to 500 years of these leadership principles that they've built the institutions globally. Now, crisis management is something that it's normally associated with leadership, with senior leadership, the C-suite, the CEO, and the C-suite members. Now, what it basically looks at is how do they coordinate, how do they direct, and how do they control the organization, the control of information to manage through and navigate through crisis, to ensure that whatever leadership support that is needed, and if there's certain support that is needed from external stakeholders, they're able to facilitate and provide that to the organization. The one that you see on the screen is based on the ISO 22361, the resilience crisis management standard that was recently issued last month. Now, one question: do you think that we actually, as individuals, do we have a role in managing crisis for an organization? Today's an interactive session, so we'll be actually asking questions so that you're able to go back and utilize the points and reflections for 2023. So question: do you think that you all participate and have an involvement in crisis management? Yes, if it's yes, could you type yes on the chat? I see one yes. Okay, yes to an extent, Kabir. Yeah, okay. So all of us have a different role. All of us work in supporting the organization, but even as an individual at home or as a parent, as a sibling, as an individual to the community, we all contribute in a different ways of actually managing the different types of crisis perspective. But yes, we all have a part in managing it effectively. Now, the question about self-leadership. Just give me one moment. While we think about self-leadership, and this is very crucial when actually talk about managing crisis through heroic leadership, I would like you to take one moment to think about 2 individuals who are still living that you have worked with, where you think about, yes, that person is a leader. That person is something that I think about is a leader. Can you just take a moment to reflect and maybe write it down in a piece of paper? Or if you want to type it on chat, about who do you think is a leader that you know and you've worked with? Okay, are you all thinking? Who do you think is a leader? Okay, who do you think is the best political leader in the world? Okay, no one's answering, so no one thinks that there's a best political. Okay, Narendra Modi, yes, Neha. Okay, so we have one person actually mentioned about Narendra Modi. Okay, who do you think is the best business sector leader in the world that we can actually utilize that experience like a role model? You all work for organizer Ratan Tata. Yeah. He's very inspirational. Yes. Warren Buffett. Anyone else? Ambani's. Okay, apart from the great know-hows, the leaders that is quite popular, has anyone written about any other leader? Think more towards yourself and your experience. Okay, no one's written anything else. Okay, the first thing that I think we all need to this thing is also acknowledge yourself. Yes, we look at inspirations from education institutions, we look at inspiration from the business sector, we look into and sometimes inspirations from the political aspect of how governments have been actually managing and providing that leadership and the community support. But the first thing I think we tend to be modest as individuals, as humans, is we forget about our individual self. So the first thing I think we all need to think about is self-leadership. I think we all should give a kudos on our backs because we as individuals have navigated through the years, especially if you look at COVID situation and doing various other struggles as individuals that we face, either family situations, health, sickness, financial perspective, is how we navigated through these various situations and how we build our own way of living, the various values and principles. So the first thing we should always, as a leader, each of us contribute, be a mother, a father, we all of us contribute. If you look at a leader, if you look at any general definition of a leader, is the one who inspires, who innovates, finds solutions, a common definition that you see across different leaders. And each individual actually has that leadership quality. Each individual for their own sphere of influence and work, actually doing their self-leadership of navigating to that perspective. So self-leadership is crucial. Now, all the leadership concepts is actually built on self-leadership. Now, if all the leaders first thinks about, yes, what's this personal beliefs, the attitudes, because ultimately they all are building their response on their own personal legacy that they want to leave behind. If a leadership role is about actually continually unfolding the various decisions that we take, the way we influence our time, whether we realize it or not, whether we're choosing our opportunities, which opportunities do we lead, which opportunities are just given to us and we need to manage, and how do we respond to these opportunities, and whether we do a good job or whether we do maybe a lousy job perspective. Now, every one of us have been given this particular role of a leader. So the first thing as a leader, you should acknowledge your personal self of self-leadership quality is crucial. All of us have it maybe in various degrees, but this is the most crucial concept. Now, this particular self-leadership concept, if you look at global organization, when we thought of it initially, we always thought it was one individual, the CEO, someone is providing leadership. But the more that we're growing globally, the more we have multicultural individuals, the more we look in diversity and equity perspective and inclusion, we all of us need to be actually self-driven. And that concepts about just the leader focusing and providing that direction no longer holds good. It will be more of a negative aspect for the organization. So what is needed, and the call of the hour has always been how each individual has that self-leadership motivation aligned with a greater vision, with a greater purpose, not just for the individual roles. And that's what the organizations are looking for right now. The key concept is, yes, working towards a vision and goals, but more working towards a greater need than the individual need. And self-leadership is one crucial basic foundation that we see. Now, what do leaders do? And that's important. When you look into crisis management, or we look into managing operational various destructive risks that could happen, I've been working for the last 21 years. Prior to that, I worked with youth and women across India, Africa, and France. And I've seen earthquakes, I've seen serial bomb blasts, supported various response deployments from this perspective. But the four principles, that the four concepts that you see here still has been a driven factor for me as an individual to actually provide that guidance across different types of crisis situations. What do you think the first symbol is? Anyone like to guess what the first symbol is? Sorry, I think there's an issue with showing direction. Yes. Now, the first piece, what a leader does is establish direction. It's needed, as each and every individual, yes, an organization has a vision and a mission, a perspective, and they focus on the organization, but you need to actually translate that as an individual, what is the direction? You need to develop that particular vision for the future. And often it's a distant vision that we look at. We look at strategies for producing those changes that in order for you to achieve that particular vision. So the first one, yes, the leaders always provide a direction. We all need to have a direction, a purpose in life. And this is the first thing that is needed, establishing direction. What do you think the second picture speaks about? Path and execution. Okay. Anything else? Walking together. Okay. Kabir and Rakesh. Anyone else would like to try? Leaders always align with people. Now, the way we communicate as individuals, we may not be having the title as a role, but the way we communicate, the words that we actually use, the actions or the deeds that we actually execute, and how do we bring in that cooperation that may be needed for you to manage your different situations, and how do you influence? You not have the title of a leader to be an influencer. You can actually still can influence and create teams and coalitions perspective. You need to be able to break down that vision that the organization has into proper vision and strategies that each level of the team members across the different grades and scale are able to relate to. And also they need to accept, they validate, they need to find that, yes, that is the purpose of the why my contribution, the work that we do has an impact to the organization. There was a good, I'm not sure how many have read, but when the US, many years ago, when Kennedy, the president, was visiting the space station, he had met a janitor. Now, he asked the janitor to be polite. He asked the janitor, yeah, what do you do? Janitor thought something bigger. The janitor just said, I'm actually supporting and helping the man to be on moon. So Kennedy knew that he's speaking to a janitor, but the response of that janitor had given a different perspective. So for us as an individual, are we able to align that purpose more than ourselves, having that bigger vision and mission, having the bigger goal, a purpose in life, and that able to align the individuals of the organization is crucial. I think that is key. And that's actually one of the key aspects of aligning individuals towards the goals and objectives. What do you think the third symbol specifies? Helps you grow. What helps you grow? Neha. Anyone else would like to try? What's a third symbol? Unlocking potential. How do you unlock potential? Leaders help you grow. Yes, I know leaders help you grow. You're referring to the slide. How do you unlock potential and how do they help you grow? They inspire you. Leaders do inspire, they motivate perspective, and that's what a leader is. So if you may not have, as I mentioned, you may not have a title, but be able to inspire, motivate your team members, energize the team members, not just following any bureaucratic and having this resource barriers of saying that, yes, there's a hierarchy of response, but if you're able to motivate and inspire individuals, and that's what leader does. That's one of the crucial aspects. What is the last one? I think the last one, all of us see the name itself. We change. Leaders focus on change. How do we produce that change? How do we lead all the time? It's all the leadership concepts is all springs in as a leader. It's about who as an individual I am, as much as what that the leader does. Leadership is actually not an act. It's a way of life. It's the way we live. It's never saying that, yes, I'm now a leader and that's it. Leadership is an ongoing process. There is actually no end to that particular time frame. So if you look at the concept of a leader, and this leader is from the concept of heroic principles, that the way the largest institutions, the educational institutions, as you see globally, the Jesuits, have been driving these 4 factors, and they normally operated across every aspect. So whenever they actually induct individuals, when you have not just the Jesuit priest itself, induct individuals globally to lead these institutions globally and in a forum, they basically focus on these 4 high-level concept. Every individual part of that organization is supposed to be a leader that focuses on direction, focuses on aligning every individual, being part of that particular purpose. Motivate and inspire, it has to come within as an individual and focus on change. So it's not just about the core leadership team and C-suite team, is also focus on as an individual leader. Now, these principles of what we look into the 4, what the leaders do, is something that we also focus on when we actually look at operational continuity incidents that actually need some leadership support and crisis management. So when I used to manage global incidents perspective, I would not be able to be physically present in Japan, or I would not be able to physically be present at times in Saudi or in UAE. I would be traveling, and for the organization and for my team to just rely on me for guidance is not something that I want to be. We call it a single point of failure. I do not want to be a single point of failure for my team. So these are the key principles. I said every individual in our team has to have these 4 aspects. Ensure the direction, align every individual's, inspire and motivate. There's no bureaucracy perspective. Each of us are leaders. We are empowered. perspective, even if there's organization, bureaucracy, hierarchy, and challenges, but we find a way, we are able to motivate ourselves to find a way and have that change through our actions and deeds. And that's when it'd be more of an influence factor overall. I like this quote of Nelson Mandela. This is one of my go-to quotes. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. So, question, do you think, another question for you all, and it's a very important question. Do you think leaders need courage? Do you think as individuals, as leaders, need courage? Yes. You have two answers as yes. Why do we need courage, especially when you're working through complex environments, complex decision making? Why do you need courage? Why, as individuals, we need courage? At times, I'm a mother myself. I need to find sometimes innovative solutions to manage home and work and the other aspects. But I fear at times I'm also afraid of making the wrong decisions, but I know what needs to be done. I look at options, I look at solutions that can be worked. I know what can be done, but I also have that bit of fear saying that, yes, if I make a mistake, it would be, or if I make a mistake and I not make the right decision or even advise the right decision, I may have consequences. But that's what the leaders do. The leaders do they may not have the answers to all these solutions in the world. Each situation differs. Based on experience, we look at judgments, identify different solutions, and take that call with that fear, saying that yes, and have that courage, saying that yes, it may fail, but at least we tried based on our experience. And this is what, as individuals' perspective, we need to have the courage. Every leader has a little bit of being afraid of making incorrect decisions, but that's what keeps us going. That's what is about crisis management as well, having the courage to explore situations, looking at alternatives, having your risk management place, putting together a strategy in place, perspective, assessing the situation from all angles, and then having the courage to make that decision. And yes, sometimes the decision may not be right, but at least your team and your followers or the influencers would know that, yes, you had the courage to make that decision, what needed to be done at that particular stage. And this is crucial perspective. We all do that in a way, but courage is one of the most important principle and aspect when you're managing crisis management or operational continuity or any situation that we try to juggle both in our personal and professional lives as individuals. Now, when we look into a corporate leadership, we always think about, yes, we need to persuade people, we need to get things done for individuals in place. But when the Jesuits, when they looked at building from 12 individuals to what now a massive 450-year-old organization, close to 500 years now, old organization perspective, they looked at actually ensuring that every individual in the organization have the skills, able to have and discern that what, from their perspective, what needs to be done. Having that courage to actually execute their particular work, I think that is crucial for them. Now, this was one of the foundation principles of having the courage to make decisions, working with different organizations across the world. Now, as I stated at the start, sometimes when we think a leader, and I sometimes have it with some of my team members as well, so they will look for me to provide that direction. We have that concept, yes, the leadership is the top C-suite, leaders, CEO of the company. We do forget that, and it's a big stereotype that is like the one great man, one great woman, or one great person perspective. And this stereotype of thinking a leader is a top perspective, and all the information and is all passed on from the top leadership to the team members is a very old concept, I can tell you. No organization, yes, top-down guidance is provided. However, it requires these days, especially for global organization, multinationals working different regions of the world, it requires, yes, that vision and support, but that also could be a problem if it's just the top leadership team looking at it. It's not the only solution. If you're able to position these direct team members, have in each individual in that particular team across geographies, across departments, across different team members, different scales, they will actually help you, help the organization have to drive towards the goals and the objectives. They would have the energy, they will be innovative, they would feel valued and supported. As long as the individual in each organization feel, yes, their contribution works to a higher good for the organization, the efforts is valued, perspective, and that's when that individual will actually be driving their self-leadership concepts, even in managing different, through when an organization goes through a difficult time. So that is crucial. It's never a one-man principle concept that you see here. Now, as a leader, as an individual, as I mentioned, leadership is an ongoing process. As an individual, it's part of your self-development. It's a never-ending work. It requires for you to always continually understanding the external environments that we work with, the personal circumstances that we go through, understanding and pre-prioritizing your personal priorities, re-looking at your personal strengths. Sometimes your personal strength, you think it's still there, may have already eroded, and identifying those opportunities where you can actually work on. And all these changes as an individual always demand consistent, balanced growth and evolution as a leader. Now, as I mentioned, it's all springs from you as an individual perspective. Now, the way each of us communicate, the way each of us have our own personal vision and in your daily life, to the messages that you pass on, people that you interact, perspective, how you do your self-reflection, what do you care about, what do you want, how do you want to lift up the world in a way. It's not an act, it's all about the way we live. Now, this concept of one way of proceeding, the way we do things, the way we prioritize and shared by all of the team members, it is a compass. It is not a checklist item in a way. There are various techniques that was being used. 1 second. My screen is off again. There are various techniques that we see that we've been using, right? We've been using 360 degrees feedback. We use a lot of strategic and transformational perspective, communication, crisis response, protocols, do's and don'ts, communication guidelines, code of conduct as an organization. So even though organizations, they obviously, as an organization, they would certainly focus on what the organization needs, but as an individual, as a leader, as a team member, we need to focus on how do we able to relate to that organization needs and meet that purpose. Are we contributing to that purpose? That clarity of how your contribution to that purpose is crucial. Now, one of the there is a tool that is being used that I use it for many years now, around 15 to 20 years that I've been using. It's an exercise that is of a reflection. I'm for sure all of us have goals. 2023 is just few days away. You may be listing down your different goals and objectives. Likewise, when you have a crisis situation, we always say is what is the stand down criteria? When should I say as an organization, as leader, yes, now it's business as usual. There are normal operational incidents that can be managed, but what's my stand down criteria? Likewise, what is your own purpose and goal? And it has to be, and I think you should not focus on as an individual. You focus on your goal should be something above you, something of a greater goal and objective, either for an organization or for a community. If you work towards something higher and have that purpose, it creates a different dynamics. It gives you more empowerment to manage and facilitate more calmness when you're going through a difficult situation, or even as an organization, when you have stressful situations perspective. Now, one of the key tool is reflection. There is a technique called the exercise where you do a reflection upon the sunrise. So upon the sunrise, you look at your goal. Some people write the goals on the 1st of Jan. I've started mine, so I have it in my diary as well. So we write our goals for 2023. We put down in the diary. We may look at it every quarter. It doesn't help. The first thing that you actually need to do as a leader, as an individual of managing difficult situations, focusing and looking at the goal at the start of the day upon rising. So as soon as you get up, take a look at the goal, see how your actions for the day may be aligning to that particular goal. And then you do 2 mental pit stops during the day. And that's what I do, a reflection moment of just taking less than 2 minutes in the afternoon and in the morning to see whether my actions for the day is aligning to my goal and objectives that I've created for my vision. Am I contributing it to something bigger? Am I loving myself first? Because you need to be happy within in order for you to contribute and have the positive aspect outside. Perspective. And I think that 2 mental pit stops that you do and your reflection at the start of the day actually helps you much more to achieve your goals and objectives. You may be looking at situations, yes, I had a bad meeting in the morning. My boss may have spoken to me rudely or may not have even acknowledged my presence perspective, but that happened in the morning. But I need to look at as, yes, at the afternoon, am I carrying that thought through the entire day and wasting my personal time? Our time is in a day just 24 hours. Should I be wasting that time, or just take that learnings that I had during that particular moment, take it, update it, strategize, and start executing? So the 2 mental pit stops that you would actually do is quite crucial. It helps you to get rebalanced. I look at my crisis. I manage crisis response deployment, extremely stressful situations. Perspective. But what actually helps me keeps me going and having that reflection. Yes, what are my learnings? What are the things that I can actually take into account? Perspective for either for an organization, for the clients, or for the government's perspective, or as an individual, take that learning, write it down, and yes, I park it. And I take that learnings forward. The rest of it is just an experience that I've already reflected on and not carrying it forward for the entire day or weeks or months perspective. And that's a good, I would say, a good tip that you would actually utilize as one of your principles for crisis management. Now, there are 4 principles based on which, as I mentioned, this is all on the heroic principles, leadership principles. The first is self-awareness, understanding yourself. I'll come to a bit more into detail in some time now. The second is ingenuity. World is changing. There are complex situations. At times during the course of the day, I'll be going through multiple different situations, perspective, different industries, different situations, but how do we adapt? How do we change? How do we innovate? And how do we actually get the work done? Perspective, climate change has a broad impact across the world. Perspective, the decisions of various governments has an impact of supply chain disruptions that we see right now, and being undergoing the financial sometimes turmoil of certain companies, the inflation rates that we see, that's changing. But how do we still confidently innovate, adapt, and respond is key. Love. Now, this is crucial. It doesn't mean that that you need to be hard, that you should not love, because if a person feels loved, feels valued, and have that attitude, they would actually feel valued. They will contribute to your own department's goals and objectives, or the organization goals and objectives much more than a person who doesn't feel that value. Now, this is where that difference is. As I said, leadership is not a title; it's a behavior, and this is crucial perspective. Heroism. Now, when you are self-energized, when you yourselves feel happy, feel valued as an individual, you're able to contribute. There is one concept that has been used by the Jesuits. This called always having one leg up, one leg raised. At every point of time, yes, having that one leg raising, that yes, I'm available. I'm going through various situations and managing, but I have that one leg raised to step in and support any other individual or the organization or the community. That way you can actually support. Now, this is a crucial heroism concept that actually will help you to manage and succeed, and having that self-happiness and energized ways, having always that ability, and always having that ability and will to actually step up and support in case of anyone that's needs. So these are the four great, I would say, the pillars or the principles of the heroic leadership. That's something that we always do. And I normally utilize this perspective. Now, if you look at the first point, the self-awareness. Now, the self-awareness is where you understand, I think it's very important. I've seen situations where leaders at times may not have been trained to respond effectively. They may not have gone through any situations. There is a concept that was coined by the Harvard professor university about twice born. It's nothing to do with religious, but it's something with twice born. Yes, we are born as an individual, but as an individual, if you've gone through a difficult time, a difficult situation, or you manage different crisis situations, your concept, the view of the world is very different. You actually know much more about your own personal blind spots, your weakness, what can actually stop you from exploring your own potential. Having that self-reflection is crucial. So self-awareness is crucial for an individual. It is your main base pillar. And that's why when we do our crisis management and operational continuity disruptions, we always focus on, yes, what are the competencies that is needed for individuals that can actually manage crisis. We've seen actually organization, at times even the CEO will say, yes, it is too stressful for me. I will actually step out in the crisis management meeting and provide that strategic direction or support, but I would need someone else to actually be the crisis response communicator or spokesperson who can actually navigate that response. So we've seen, but you need to know what are your strengths, the weakness, the values that you drive, so that you're able to communicate the same. The second one that we've seen was ingenuity. The world is changing. We all said at the start, yes, the world is changing. What was done 20 plus years ago, it's very different from what is being done right now. But what needs to be done is, what are your principles? What are the non-negotiable principles and values that you will still carry forward? Adapting to various new ideas, exploring options, approaches, and cultures can actually, it's crucial to be able to adapt and respond. And that's why I said resilience. So how do we still adapt and respond to the various situations across us? But it has to be based on what are your principles and the values that you, as an individual and as an organization, that we're focusing on perspective. Now, the other point that we spoke about was love. And as I mentioned, if you're able to love yourself, it's very important. Not just love the others, but love yourself first. And if you know yourself and love yourself, you have that confidence within you to actually navigate through various situations, and navigate through talent, navigate through dignity, and have that potential to lead. You do not have a title, as I mentioned. You will actually, when you love yourself and love the individuals and you make them feel valued, you actually create an environment that is very loyal. You will have that affection within the team, and you will also build a lot of mutual support, not just within the organization, also outside the organization and in the community as well. The fourth pillar we spoke about was on heroism. Now, heroism is where we strive and where we inspire the future. And how do we shape it? Now, it's always about identifying those opportunities and having that ability to actually step in and support. As I mentioned at the start, I was always having one leg raised, always when you're trying to support different activities. So these are the four pillars of success. I will say the four pillars of, or the four principles based on which we look at managing. I personally look at having that as my key values and principles when I facilitate and respond to different crisis situations or operation continuity incidents, be it at the national level or cities perspective or organizations, both public and private sectors. Now, all of this is based on 5 core competencies. Let's see, I purposely did not put headings for these pictures, but I wanted to see whether we're able to gauge. What do you think is the first emotional intelligence competency that you would need, that you have, but you may not have realized to the full potential? What's the first? Okay, confidence. Okay. Anyone else? Confidence comes from self-awareness. The first one is self-awareness. Confidence comes from self-awareness perspective. The second is self-regulation. How do we regulate and respond? It is the only thing that we can control. As we as an individual can control is how we respond, react to situations. Think, respond, and react. The rest of it is out of our control perspective. But these 3 things are core. So self-regulation is the second one. What do you think is the third picture donates? That is a core competency that you have, but you need to realize and utilize it to your benefit. What's the third one? A person is trying to catch something. Anyone wants to guess? Chasing your goals. Chasing your goals through motivation. You need to motivate to chase your goals. Yes. What's the fourth picture, the left-hand corner on your screen? You see 2 people holding hands. What's that? What do you think that is about? Empathy. Absolutely. Empathy. Spot on, Kabir. So you need to have that empathy. It's a very crucial emotional intelligence skill set that we have, but obviously to various degrees. And what's the last one? What do you think this picture donate? What does the last picture? Anyone wants to try? We're talking today. We are on Zoom. We're having a discussion across oceans at the moment. Happiness, yes. A little more on people side. Anyone wants to try once more? social skills. Again, as an individual, all of us have different personalities, but each of us need to know as to how do we navigate our past personalities to have that social skills to respond, to react, to contribute to your own goals and objectives. I think that social skills is the fifth core competency as an individual, as a leader that we focus on. Now, I want to go a little more on this. The first thing on the self-awareness, we did touch base on that from the 4 principles of leadership, is self-awareness. You need to understand what is your mood, what drives your emotions, what drives you as an individual perspective. Having that self-awareness is crucial. What keeps you motivated for you to have that confidence, as Neha mentioned? Second is self-regulation. How do I have the ability to control or redirect that destructive impulses and moods that you may have? How do I stop that judgments, the thoughts, the negative thoughts, or having a judgment and opinion that's something that you haven't contributed based on outside? How do I think before acting and responding? So that self-regulation is crucial. It's a crucial skill set as a leader. It's a crucial skill set as a crisis management leader. It's a crucial skill set as an individual. As a mom, I need to do a lot of self-regulations so that it doesn't impact my son's personality as he's growing up. He's just 6 years old. And how do I utilize my own self-awareness perspective and regulating? And as a leader of my team, I need to know as to how do I stop having that judgments of thought process of specific team members. How do I think and how do I control that impulsive ability to respond to situations? The third one we seen was motivation. What is the passion for you to work? It's not just about the money. Money is crucial, but it's what is the passion and the reason as to why you want to motivate yourself to work or to contribute or to be part of the community, to be part of your own family. What's that motivation? Empathy, understanding what makes other people, especially the team, the people that you work with, your family, your relations, the community perspective. Understanding what makes that emotional perspective helps you. Perspective, social skills. It's all about relationships. It's about managing those relationships, about building that networks and having that common ground as an individual. Now, these were the 5, as I mentioned, the 5 core competencies of emotional intelligence that we use day in, day out. It's also part of the heroic leadership principles of the 4 key principles. Now, as I mentioned, when you're focusing on activity, we always have it in the different degrees of level, but if you start focusing on these 5 principles in your own reflections, if you do your reflections either daily basis or 2 pit stops, or whenever you review your goals and objectives, it is important that you appreciate your own dignity and your own rich potential as an individual. Now, you also would need to recognize your own weakness and attachments and that you may have that may also block you from realizing your individual potential. As an organization, whenever we do strategy and transformation, we also think about the same. How do we appreciate our organization culture? What are the different weaknesses that's stopping us to achieve? How do we block those particular weakness perspectives? And how are we able to articulate the values that you stand for? So whatever values as an individual, as a family member, or as a department manager or leader, are you able to articulate your values that you're contributing? Have you established, now, yes, it's important that organization would certainly focus on organization goals, but as an individual, as a leader itself, you need to focus on what's your personal goal. You have to form your own view of the world, where you stand, what you want, and how do you want to relate to others. While you do this on your reflection, you will see a different you over the course of time frame. You will feel more confidence. It'll help you to reprioritize, and the lessons that you learned both from successes and failures will actually keep you going, and keep you going in a very positive manner perspective. So these were the 5 core competencies. I hope you are able to take it with you as a reflection on managing different situations and crisis mode. And at any point of time, if you have any questions, feel free to connect. I'm happy to support. Thanks, Faisal, and thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Evita. So before we move into the Q&A session, we will be initiating the poll. Request all participants to kindly share your feedback. While doing so, request all participants to kindly post their questions in the chat window. Once again, I thank all our participants for joining our session today. We have received a lot of inquiry about the e-certificate offered by HRAI. You can claim your certificate by sharing your details, name, and session attended in an email to the email ID provided in the chat window. Please ensure to do this by end of this month. We will email the e-certificates to you based on the details received. So, Ms. Evita, we have received some questions from the registrations. So we'll just go with it. So the first question that has come is what all could be the ways by which leaders or HR can connect with employees and take stock of employees' mental well-being in the time of crisis? What all could be can connect with employees and take stock of employees' mental well-being in the time of crisis? The question.
I think the question had the answer, is connect. You would need to connect. And I think connection has to be in at various touch points. I'm for sure as HR, you may have an employee journey. What we do in organization resilience is something called the people resilience perspective. Now, in that people resilience concept, we actually identify, obviously, the various skill sets, know-how, be it personality, perspective, be it skills of the department, knowledge and information. This core competency is actually driven down saying that what are the minimum skill set that you need as an organization? The 2 points, as an individual and as an organization perspective, where HR plays that role. So as HR, you have one as the organization need of ensuring that that skill set, be it your leadership skills, communication skills, empathy skills, perspective, you've already mapped up to each department, and you in your degree of feedback of your 360 degrees feedback or your evaluations that you do, you're touching base on. Apart from this, you already have various other channels that you're able to connect to the team, like huddles, meetings, perspective, where you do different evaluation of your skills. Now, this is something that we say is a basic need for the organization to operate even during crisis situations. COVID timeframe, people thought, many of the organization thought was just having the people skill set. Is having the skill set alone of talent is not just a need, but having the ability to actually execute in stressful situations is something of a different skill set, and having that mental ability. I think that needs to be part of your competency mapping and your crucial aspect of the role holder. I think if you haven't done that, I think that's important. HR can actually add that soft side of skill sets. Second is identify and doing the employee's journey in your operational processes. There'll be various situations. If you're working for a manufacturing organization, you will actually know it's very process-driven, structured, and there'll be certain situations in that entire process, you know, your hazard risk perspective, which will actually create some sort of a mental disruption. Some people may not want to have that interactions or managing the various hazard, going through various perspectives. So I think having that risk management perspective, from hazard risk, from the viewpoint of people is crucial. Again, it depends on the type of organization. There was manufacturing, financial has a different, IT has a different way of looking at it. But identifying what are your key risks that can actually stop is crucial for the perspective. Now, having that culture and environment, we always use the word culture, but again, that culture and environment is having that openness to discuss, having that channel of to identify issues, bringing that happiness day, right? In UAE, I'm based out of Dubai. In UAE, we have we have a happiness officer, a minister as well. So that focuses on actually happiness within the country. So likewise, having that happiness day or happiness initiative, not just once in a month or once in a year, but having it as part of your value and principle, the way you operate, that is crucial. And how do you build that? I think that will require you to customize that concept and break it down into very operational activities that you can roll out. But I think the most important thing is having that empathy and being known to be available to your employees. Professionals had a hard time while managing medical insurance, providing the support that we need for the employees or the extended families, at times even communities that they work with. But having that calmness to respond is crucial. And that's what actually can help the employee as well. And obviously providing a lot of employee healthcare benefits, that is crucial. And identifying the employee need. I think these are the key tips I would say, that to focus on people resilience, and it's primarily driven by HR, but also has the greater organization leadership that has to support on.
Thank you, Ms. Arita, for answering this question in detail. So there's one more question, that is, how a great leader can incorporate empathetic thinking or perspective while communicating with employee during the time of crisis.
Okay, so you're talking about how does the leader able to communicate with critical thinking?
Yeah, how a great leader can incorporate empathetic thinking or perspective while communicating with employee during the time of crisis.
Empathy is a principle. It's a value, it's a culture of the organization. Those organizations, yes, they may be financially driven, but any employee, how much of robotic the organization, automation that the organization has, needs to have a brain, needs to have individuals to execute, to strategize and transform perspective. Now, that is, empathy is one of your key skill set. If you say a person is a leader, the person has to have the empathic skills to communicate, to respond, able to align the individuals and have that individuals in the team feel valued. And that's the way you actually communicate. Communicate sometimes just to the words, because words sometimes is just 10%. 90% is your actions and your deeds and how you respond, how you draft your emails, how you communicate via Teams or a response. I think that is crucial.
Very rightly answered. So we'll go with the last question, looking at the time. What approach do you advise that can be used in developing agile and resilient leadership talent during the time of crisis?
Resilience as a word, it means you're able to adapt, respond to various complex situations. And you're not just able to respond effectively, you're also thinking about stepping beyond, like opportunities that you can actually build your business further. So that's when you talk about the concept of resilience. As an organization and as a leader, having that ability I would say it's all on the soft skill. The technical aspects you can train. You need to know your organization. You need to know your industry that you work with. Something we call it the recovery time objectives, and something called the MBC, or something called minimum business continuity objectives. So you would need to know what are my key processes, key products and services that I need to hit the market, or like department management, what are the key activities that I need to execute by a certain time frame. Otherwise, I will start to have an impact. So that is always at the back of my mind as a leader. And I think as every leader, as a leadership team as well, we're looking at when should I start to just execute? Otherwise, how much of time do I have? without having that impact. You should know that time. It's very important. The second thing, we call it the MBCO, something we talk about minimum business continuity objectives. What are my minimum things that as an individual, as department managers, or as an individual, or as a leader, the organization need to function, I think again, different perspectives. Minimum to keep the lights on, to ensure my business sustains. What is the minimum thing that needs to be executed? I think that's crucial. So when you are actually making your decisions, when you're working towards complex, different across different geographies, the first question we ask across different levels is each department level should be able to respond saying, when should I actually execute my work, and what work I need to execute in order to keep my business on, keep my department on without having an impact. But if it has an impact, by when I should actually execute that work. Otherwise, it's irreversible impact. I need lots of leadership support and influence pumped in for me to start to be back on. That is one. RTO, recovery time objective, MBCO, minimum business continuity objectives, is crucial. Now, while this is in place, you need to know what's your stand down criteria. So sometimes every day we go through multiple situations. We manage multiple issues. Like when I used to manage in the Philippines, we always had floods. So for me, at one point of time, I said, Philippines floods is business as usual activity, and this is my plan. While I was in Hyderabad many years ago, before the separation of state of Telangana and Andhra, it was a lot of rights instructions. So at one point of time, when I was managing that situation over there, I said, okay, communal rights and separation of state rights, it's now become business as usual because we put a plan in place. And this is the minimum expectations for the work to be executed. So as a leader, you need to set that expectation. You need to be very clear as to what I'm expecting my team, and my team members should be knowing when they should execute the work and what activities, not sitting and thinking about it during crisis. And what is the impact of the organization? I think that clarity is needed. That clarity should be provided from the department managers and the leadership team. All have to be in sync.
Thank you, Ms. Evita, for answering all these questions. And thank you for this insightful and intriguing session. There are many takeaways from this session, like self-leadership, 4 main characteristics of a leader, 4 pillars of success. It has been a pleasure being with you today. I'm sure our participants had a lot to learn and take away from this session. Before we conclude with today's session, we would also want to thank our event partners, Geisha, NASCOM COE, LinkedIn Local, Talgro, TLE, and WICCI for supporting these HRAI events. To know more about them, request you to kindly visit the link provided in the chat window. Thank you once again, dear speaker and our participants, for joining us today. Do join us for our next masterclass by Mr. Tanmoy Datta, AVP Business Excellence, Vertex Group, on 28th of December 2022. That's it from our today's webinar. See you soon, stay safe, and take care. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Rita. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.